Well, greetings and salutations, everybody. Welcome to the John Campea Show here on my YouTube channel. I'm, of course, your host, John Campea, and it is an honor and a privilege to have you guys joining me here today as we talk about our favorite things in the world, movies and movie news and all that kind of good stuff. We got a lot of things to talk about, guys. We're going to talk about the Memoriam segment at the Oscars. With the impending sale of Warner Brothers, could we see DC characters getting broke up? Where is that Infinity War trailer? And a whole bunch of stuff more. But we're going to get things started today right off the top. Talking about this little piece of news, we all heard that, of course, Avengers Infinity War moved up a week to just 1 week after Dwayne Johnson's movie Rampage was supposed to open. Of course, Dwayne Johnson's movie was going to be opening on the 20th. Avengers Infinity War moved to the 27th, just 1 week away. Yesterday, it got announced that the studio has moved the release date of Dwayne Johnson's Rampage movie one further week earlier. It is now opening on April 13th. Now, some of you might be thinking, it's just a 1 week difference. 1 week difference is a huge deal. You don't want a monster blockbuster opening just on your second week. What you want to have is at least 2 weeks. If you have 2 weeks, then most of the people who are going to go see your movie have gone to see the movie, and you can still make some residual after that. Now, I remember when this happened and Infinity War moved, a lot of us speculated that, well, Rampage is going to have to move a little bit. A lot of people are saying, well, John, Dwayne Johnson's Jumanji opened 1 week after Star Wars The Last Jedi. Yes, and what I said at the time was, there's a big difference, though, between opening after a big blockbuster opens and opening right before a big blockbuster opens. Because if you open before a big blockbuster opens, once that blockbuster opens, it kind of slams the brakes on your momentum. So they did a pretty smart thing and they moved it back. Now, some people were speculating that the Amy Schumer movie, I Feel Pretty, would also move. I haven't seen anywhere that it's moved. Maybe it has, but I haven't seen anywhere that it's moved. But then again, I Feel Pretty is going after such a different demographic than Avengers Infinity War. I don't really feel like it needs to move, per se. So I think that'd be fine. So basically here, the story is that Dwayne Johnson's movie Rampage has moved from April 20th to get 1 week further away from the opening of Infinity War on the 27th. And now Rampage is opening on April 13th. All right, now I've got a bunch of emails you guys sent in to me, but before we get to the emails, I want to make sure that you guys are caught up on all the significant things going on in the world of movie news. So let's get things going with today's movie news feed. First up, according to Arnold Schwarzenegger, it looks like they're going to start shooting the next Terminator installment in just 3 months. Arnold said the following: "We are starting to shoot Terminator 6 in June to the middle of October, so I am in that. I am looking forward to coming back as the T-800 model. It's going to be great with Tim Miller as the director and Jim Cameron kind of supervising the whole thing." It has previously been confirmed that Schwarzenegger will reunite with Linda Hamilton, who comes back as Sarah Connor in this movie, which will be a direct sequel to James Cameron's iconic 1991 sequel, Terminator 2 Judgment Day, and will reportedly ignore the events of all the other Terminator films. Next up, if you're one of the millions of people who appreciated the performance of Chadwick Boseman in Black Panther and a lot of his other movies, then you might have to thank Denzel Washington for that. Boseman recently shared how Denzel Washington paid for him to study at Oxford. He told Jimmy Fallon that Cosby Show star Felicia Rashad was teaching an acting class and got famous donors to help the college kids get overseas. Boseman said the following: "I didn't have money to pay for this, and so she, Rashad, got a few of her friends together and, they paid for us to go. I didn't know at first when I came back, and I've basically been holding this secret my whole career." So does that make Denzel Washington Chadwick Boseman's personal T'Chaka? Next, here's something that may never happen again in history. By winning his second Academy Award on Sunday night, Robert Lopez has become the first ever two-time winner of the EGOT. EGOT, for those of you who don't know, stands for Emmy, Grammy, Oscar, and Tony, representing all the major entertainment awards for TV, music, movies, and theater. To put this into perspective, only 12 people in history have ever achieved the EGOT, winning at least one of every award, and Lopez has now done it twice. 2 Oscars for Let It Go from Frozen and Remember Me from Coco, 2 Daytime Emmys for songs in the children's TV series Wonder Pets, 3 Tony Awards, score for Avenue Q, book and source for Book of Mormon, and 3 Grammys, 2 for Frozen and 1 for Book of Mormon. Appreciate this one, folks. It will probably never happen again. Next, Academy Award-winning actress Frances McDormand didn't have her latest Oscar in her possession very long. Following the Oscar ceremony at the annual Governor's Ball, McDormand's Oscar was stolen by a man at the party. According to reports, celebrity photographer Alex Berliner and his media escort became superheroes when they chased down the thief who stole the Oscar from the Governor's Ball and asked him to hand over the trophy. They let the robber go and then security caught up with him. How'd this guy even get into the party? And finally, according to IndieWire, principal photography on Martin Scorsese's new Netflix film, The Irishman, has officially wrapped. The film marks Scorsese's return to the gangster genre and reunites him with his former muse Robert De Niro, and also stars Joe Pesci, Al Pacino, and Ray Romano. The Irishman is based on the 2003 book I Heard You Paint Houses, which recounts the years Frank the Irishman Sheeran spent as a mob hitman. Sheeran reportedly carried out over 20 hits for the mob and was allegedly involved in the death of legendary boss Jimmy Hoffa, who went missing in July of 1975 and was never found. The Netflix film is Scorsese's most expensive movie ever, going well over budget to the tune of $140 million. Although the film is finished shooting, apparently it will not be released on Netflix until at least sometime in 2019. And that will do it for today's movie news feed. Alright guys, now that you guys are all caught up on stuff going on in the world of movie news, let's get into the main topics, the emails that you guys have sent in to me today. And we get things started with the first email today coming to us from Thomas. And Thomas writes, "What's your thoughts on the In Memoriam at the Oscars? Personally, I like to see which actors, producers, etc. that was lost during the year. The segment may be a bit long for some, but I find it, I like paying a final tribute. This year, the segment didn't include Adam West from Batman, Michael Nyqvist from John Wick, and Miguel Ferrer from Robocop and Hot Shots 2, amongst others. I say either have it and let it run a bit longer, or don't have it at all." Or thanks a lot for the question, Thomas. Yeah, and this is a topic that comes up every single year about who didn't get on the In Memoriam. Now, I am a huge fan of the In Memoriam segment on the Oscars. I think it's incredibly important. I think it's great. It's a wonderful way to pay homage and tribute to a bunch of people. And one of the things that I really like about it is not just famous actors. It's people that everybody in the industry knows was also important to the industry, like really relevant casting directors or makeup artists or whatever, like those people as well. Here's the reality though. If you want to talk about everybody who's ever been involved in the movie industry, 1,000 people died last year. 2,000 people, 4,000 people, 5,000 people who were involved in the movie industry died last year. Obviously, we can't have a 17-hour, Oscar presentation to show everybody. You can't do it. So then who do you leave out? Well, just include famous people. I don't think that's what you're saying. And I don't think we should do it that way. I think it's people who are important to the industry, even if it's people we've never heard of. Now, understanding the runtime issues of the Oscars, it brings up a thing. Like, we can't always complain, the Oscars are too long, the Oscars are too long, the Oscars are too long, and then go make that thing longer. So there's always going to be some people that you could bring up and mention every single year that didn't get mentioned. Let me cover a couple of people that you mentioned here, though. One was Adam West. And I'm going to tell you right now, I'm totally fine that they didn't include Adam West. Adam West was not known as a movie personality. He was a television personality. Really, first and foremost, he was a television personality. The Emmys celebrate television. The Oscars celebrate a different industry, the movie industry. So I was actually okay that they didn't include Adam West. I would be hurt if the Emmys didn't include it. The Emmys had the In Memoriam, and if they didn't include it, that would be a thing, because the Batman TV show was a revolutionary TV show. You definitely put him on there. But I was actually okay that they didn't put him on there. Now, as far as Nyqvist, and I never know if I'm pronouncing his name right. Yeah, he was in John Wick, but I think he was in he was an actor who was in 1 or 2 movies. I'm okay that he didn't make the In Memoriam. I'm okay with that. I mean, like I said, there were probably 700 or 800 people who died last year who were in 1 or 2 movies. So, I mean, you can't put everybody in. Now, I can't remember who it was off the top of my head now, but somebody on Twitter pointed out an Academy Award-winning actress who died last year and didn't get included on the In Memoriam. Okay, that's a no-brainer. If an Academy Award winner passes away, you put the Academy Award winner in the In Memoriam at the Academy Awards. That just kind of seems to make sense. But yeah, unfortunately, it is a conversation that's going to come up every year. Who didn't get put on the In Memoriam? But the fact of the matter is, even if they made the In Memoriam segment 15 minutes long, there would still be people that got left out. I mean, that's just the reality of it. So at some point, they have to draw a line. Now, sometimes there's an egregious omission, like an Academy Award-winning actress. Sometimes there's omissions that they just feel like, this doesn't really fit in, like maybe an Adam West. So yeah, I mean, so I'm okay with it. I don't think you need to make it any longer, and I don't think you need to kick out people who were vital to the movie industry, like PR people, agents, producers, hair and makeup people that everybody in the industry knew and celebrated, just to make room for a couple more actors that maybe you heard about. So I'm okay with it. I mean, it is a shame. It's totally a shame. But I don't think the answer is to make the Oscars even longer than they are, to be honest with you. That's just my feelings. Maybe you guys feel differently about it. Jump into the comments section. Let me know your thoughts. Should they extend the In Memoriam segment to like another 10 minutes, to another 7 minutes or something like that, to put in even more people? Or do we just accept, look, no matter how long we make it, there are going to be people who get left out no matter what? Does that mean we don't celebrate it at all? Is it like, I don't know that I agree with this notion that it's an all or nothing. Make sure we get everybody in or don't put anybody in. I don't know that I agree with that personally, but maybe some of you do. Let me know what you think below. All right, let's move on to the next topic. And the next topic comes to us from one of my Patreon supporters, Dion Shepard, who writes, "Hey John, since Marvel moved up the release date to Infinity War, do you think we should be getting the last trailer soon?" I swear to God, this question comes in every single day. "I am comparing the timelines of other big MCU films, and it's strange we have only had one actual trailer thus far." Well, you're not wrong about that. It is unusual, if you look at the MCU and Marvel's pattern of marketing, that we are now just 7.5 weeks away. Isn't that weird to think? We are only 7.5 weeks away from Avengers Infinity War. The fact that we are only 7.5 weeks away from Avengers Infinity War and we still only have the one trailer, that is unusual. It is. I mean, I'm the guy who always saying, relax everybody, a trailer will come when it will come. But even I will say, it is unusual being this close to the release and still only having one trailer out. However, these aren't usual circumstances either. I mean, the MCU doesn't usually release another major MCU film right just 10 weeks after another MCU film, right? With Black Panther. Black Panther's still tearing it up at the box office, all that kind of stuff. It's probably a part of this has to do with them wanting to keep some more attention on Black Panther as it keeps raking in the cash. That could be it too as well. They don't want to start taking the attention away from it. Look, it would be a different story if we haven't had any Infinity War trailer yet, but we have had the trailer. And it's a good enough trailer. So I'm sure they're going to put out another one. It's got to be within the next 2 weeks. I'm sure they'll put out another one. But yeah, so I would just say it's got to be soon. But you are right. It is unusual when you look at Marvel's patterns of marketing to not have a second or a third trailer out by now. But again, it's unusual circumstances that we're in. All right, let's move on to the third emailed question today. And the third emailed question today comes to us from Justin Langston, who writes, "I'm worried that if the merger between At&t and Time Warner fails, and it looks like it might, Warner Brothers Studio would sell individual DC characters to different studios. For example, Batman to Paramount, Superman to Universal, and Flash to Lionsgate. Is the possibility of this happening likely or unlikely?" All right, so what Justin is basically referring to here is, of course, At&t and Time Warner came to an agreement that At&t was going to buy Time Warner in the neighborhood of like 80-something billion dollars. That includes Warner Brothers. However, the government has stepped in and is trying to stop it, saying it's anti-competitive, so they're trying to stop that deal. I mean, anything can happen, but it looks like maybe the government will be able to stop the deal. We'll see. We're not going to find out for a while, so that the deal could still go through. We've seen reports coming out of places like The Wrap and whatnot that if the At&t deal fails and Time Warner is not able to get purchased by AT&T, that Time Warner would look at selling off their individual assets, selling off HBO, selling off Warner Brothers. Warner Brothers owns the DC properties, right? So there is theoretically a possibility here that if Time Warner were to sell off Warner Brothers, that whoever the new owner is of Warner Brothers, they could adopt a philosophy of selling off individual character rights to other studios. That is theoretically possible. I don't think it's likely, which I will explain why I don't think it's likely in a conversation, because I wanted to get another point of view on this as well. So I decided to call our friend Migdalia Melendez to come in and talk about this. And in this conversation, I always explain why I don't think we have to worry about this happening. Here, check this out. All right, Migdalia. So the one thing that, when you're talking about the prospect of what happens if DC gets chopped up. They send Batman to one studio. They send Superman to another studio. They send Wonder Woman to Lionsgate or something like that. The one thing that I think is going to act as the safeguard, the protection against that happening, is the fact that right now every studio is looking to create a cinematic universe. All these properties right now are considered far more valuable when they're together one big package, as opposed to, say, singularity. But let me ask you this. Could there be an upside? Like, if I were to ask you, like, what is the upside? What could be some of the positive ramifications of a Superman going to Paramount, of a Batman going to Universal? What could be an upside to something like that?
Well, John, as a big fan of the older standalone DC films, I really had to dig deep inside to find an upside. Because, listen, this is not the first time we've dealt with this situation. As everyone knows, Marvel sold off their characters long time ago. But I think the upside to this is that we could finally get the DCEU out of the hands of people who seem to be solely concerned about money, which is fair on one hand because they are a business, but it's not good for the fan base. So let's get it into the hands of a studio that may care more about these characters, the studios that are more into character films, who trust their filmmakers, like Netflix, like Disney. Look at what Netflix is doing with properties like Jessica Jones and Daredevil. These are characters who have really dark pasts. So I actually feel confident about Netflix taking a couple of these characters.
Well, okay, but in this landscape that we have right now, with everybody being so obsessed with, with the shared cinematic universe, is the day gone when, like, a Sam Raimi Spider-Man film, who didn't live in a universe with 500 other superheroes, are the days of the truly standalone solo superhero movie done? Can those films even exist today?
I mean, yes and no. You could argue that having shared universes causes a lot of issues. You have timeline issues, plot holes, and tones that are all over the place. So it's more like a buffet than a composition most of the time. But then again, audiences are a little bit more sophisticated. They're a lot more aware. So when you have these end of the world events that take place in New York City or a place like Gotham, and only Spider-Man shows up to the scene, it's like, okay, well, where are the Avengers? Where are the X-Men? Or like Metropolis is not that far away. So where is Superman? However, WB needs to let the shared universe pipe dream go. They're just not doing it correctly. And where they succeeded a long time ago, before even Marvel did, was in their standalone films.
Okay, so let me ask you this. Let's say theoretically that we were going to get a situation where one of these DC characters are going to get spun off to another studio. Aside from Batman, can't pick Batman, that's cheating, but
so
aside
easy.
from Batman, which DC character do you think would be best positioned, do you think, to actually be able to succeed in their own standalone film, in their own standalone universe?
Okay, well, Superman is the easy go-to, right? Because he's basically the mascot of DC. He's had as many standalone features as Batman has. But who is the DCEU? Who is WB really pushing at the forefront of their campaigns? It's Wonder Woman. It's a good thing that the character doesn't age, because it's not going to be distracting like X-Men is right now. James McAvoy does not look 60 years old. Right. And the fact that she doesn't age will make for interesting storylines. Now, she doesn't have a great rogues gallery like Superman or Batman does, but they can easily evolve her current villains. They can create new ones for her. Yeah. There's a reason that DC is pushing her to the front and fast-tracked her sequel, because she's bringing home the veggie bacon and the positive publicity.
All right. Well, thanks so much, Migdalia. Listen, for people who want to find you online, where can they find you on Twitter?
Guys, you can find me at Miggy Spicy on Twitter. That's MIGGYSPICY.
All right. Perfect. Thanks a lot, Migdalia.
Thanks, John.
All right, and that's Migdalia Melendez. She's a film producer. You can find her on the hashtag show, and you'll probably be seeing her popping up now and again here on the John Campea show as well. I really like having her on. Hey, listen, guys, you probably just noticed that we've been taking some emails from you guys. If you want to get an email on the John Campea show, just email me anytime at john@thejohncampeashow.com. Put the word topic in the subject line, and make sure you keep your email to 90 words or less. All right, guys, we got about 10 minutes left, so I like to save a little bit of time and go over to your live questions for those of you guys who are watching us live. So let's get things started right now. And the first live question today comes to us from Gabriel Mengesha, who writes, Soul Stone is Wakanda? Contained in the meteor that struck, that is why when somebody takes the plant, they go to the afterlife and get abilities from it, and why there is a big fight there in Infinity War. Well, that's a very popular kind of theory right now. Like, why, out of everywhere on the planet, does it seem like Thanos' forces are attacking Wakanda? Why there? I still think, Soul Stone is a possibility. But remember, they don't just say that vibranium is the strongest metal on Earth. They said in the movie that it's the strongest metal in the universe. It could very well be, just on its surface, that, Thanos is interested in vibranium. He just wants the vibranium. If his army is equipped with vibranium, he's unstoppable in the universe, right? So there's that. Could be Soul Stone. We'll have to just wait and see how that all plays out. All right, the next question comes to us from TF, who writes, John, I'm watching all the Marvel movies for the release of Infinity War and noticed the Paramount Pictures logo is on nearly all of the Phase 1 films. Didn't Disney already own Marvel then? Thanks. Yes, they did. Now, I made a video about this, but I'll just give you the highlights of it, okay? There are two types of movie rights. This is very important to understand. There are two types of movie rights. There are the production rights. That means you have the rights to produce a movie. Let's talk about Felipe, the sentient dancing microphone, okay? So there are two types of rights. One, the rights to actually make a Felipe, the sentient dancing microphone movie. So let's say I own the rights to that. But the second and equally as important set of rights are the distribution rights. The rights to, once that movie is made, to actually be the one to take that movie and distribute it on home video, on Netflix, in movie theaters, whatever. That's the role of the distributor, and those are distribution rights. Now, what happened early on in the day is that Marvel early on, even before the whole MCU started, they sold off the distribution rights to a number of their characters to Paramount. That's why in a lot of those Phase 1 films, you see the Paramount logo, because Paramount was the distributor. Now, that deal is now over and done. Marvel got the distribution rights to those movies back, but that's why in Phase 1, you see the Paramount logo. Yes, Marvel already had the rights to produce their own movies, but they were still under a contract to let Paramount distribute them. That contract is now expired. Disney and Marvel have all the distribution and the production rights to those things, which is, by the way, the reason there are still some people out there who think that Universal owns the rights to Hulk. No, they don't. Marvel has the production rights to Hulk still, but the reason you don't see Marvel doing a standalone Hulk film is because Universal still has the distribution rights. If Marvel produced a Hulk movie, they would have to let Universal distribute the film, and they don't want to do that. So they're just going to hold on, and everybody's, playing chicken right now. But that's why you don't see a standalone Hulk film happening right now. Hope that cleared that up a little bit. By the way, guys, search on my YouTube channel just search my YouTube channel. You can search individual YouTube channels. Search Hulk Standalone, and you should find a video that I made. This is about 6 minutes long that really fully explains the whole distribution versus production rights and why we're not getting a Hulk Standalone film. You can find that all there. Go check that out. Okay, next question comes to us from Andreas, who writes, I'm with you about time travel as a trope. That's why I'm hesitant about the Flashpoint idea. Isn't it using time travel just to tell an Elseworld story? Well, in many ways, yes, but Elseworld stories can be awesome. Look at The Dark Knight Returns. The Dark Knight Returns is an Elseworld story, and it's amazing. Red Sun is an Elseworld story, and it's amazing. So it's kind of a blend. Flashpoint, when taken at face value, depending on remember, they may do something completely different with Flashpoint than what's in the animated film or what's in the graphic novels. But Flashpoint is kind of a blend of an Elseworlds versus the real world kind of stuff. So there's a lot of different things they can do. And I will say this, at least the Flashpoint story's been around a long time, so it's not a new time travel story per se, so I'd be okay with it. Manuel Fernandez writes, are you worried that the ratings for the Oscars was at an all-time low, 19% drop from last year? Actually, that number's gone down. I think they said it's ultimately going to end up around a 12% drop from last year. Do you think the Oscars could end in the near future? No, because here's the thing that everybody always leaves out. Well, first of all, again, there were no big blockbusters nominated for Best Picture this year. There were none. It's difficult to appeal to everybody when there's no highly visible, because look, as great as Three Billboards was, as great as Shape of Water is, as great as Call Me By Your Name is, and yada, 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 none of them were big hits. There's not a ton of people out there that knew those movies, so there's a lot of people out there that had no movie they would really be cheering for. So a lot of people didn't tune in. But here's the reality. The reality is, over 30 million people in the United States alone. I didn't even see what the worldwide numbers are, but 30 million people in the United States alone tuned in. It is going to be the number one watched television broadcast outside of the Super Bowl and the Super Bowl championship games. It's going to be the number one broadcast of the year. So no, the Oscars are in no danger whatsoever. Like, talk to me when it's like the 30th or the 35th or the 40th biggest television broadcast of the year. Then maybe we have the discussion about it maybe not being, not continuing or something like that. But I mean, other than the NFL and the NFL and the championship games, it's going to be the number one broadcast event in the United States this year. So keep it all in perspective. I know there's some numbers that come up that make it sexy to talk about this or that, but we got to look at all the numbers, and all the numbers are, it's still, other than sports, it's still the number one broadcast of the year. So yeah, don't worry about it. There will be up years, there will be down years. Look, I'm even predicting I think next year might even be lower. Unless Black Panther ends up getting nominated for stuff, in which case the ratings could go through the roof, but we'll just have to see how that all goes. All right, got a couple minutes left here. Rex Cousins writes, underrated actor/director duo. Mark Wahlberg and Peter Berg worked together on Patriots Day, Deepwater Horizon, and Lone Survivor. Thoughts? They're not underrated at all. I mean, just last week, Rex, there were people asking about who's even the better actor-director combo. Is it Berg and Wahlberg, or was it like Scorsese and DiCaprio, or something like that? I don't believe that's an underrated duo at all. Everybody knows that they're a terrific duo. Their movies are celebrated. All the movies they've made together are celebrated. I don't think they're underrated at all. I think they get the credit they're due together, to be honest with you. They're great, just not underrated. Mary writes, any thoughts on Adam West and Toby Hooper's non-inclusion in the Oscars Memoriam segment? Mary, you forgot to read the show notes before I started, so obviously we already addressed that. Go back, if you're just joining us now, go back and watch a little bit earlier. I go in depth about my thoughts on the whole In Memoriam thing. Ben Rayner writes, bad sign that late embargo of Wrinkle in Time. I don't think so. I mean, to be honest with you, I'm not even sure when the embargo is. As long as the embargo is like 72 hours before the movie releases, and that's a perfectly acceptable thing. I haven't seen it. If the embargo is like the day before, that's worrisome. Especially for Disney. That's worrisome. But if it's like 72 hours or more, then that's not a late embargo. That's actually kind of standard. There's nothing wrong with that. So I'll have to, again, I don't know when the embargo is, so I'll have to wait and see. Fox Mulder writes, joined Patreon, been watching since your time with Snowhawk. Okay. I work the night shift and look forward to the show every morning. Well, thank you so much, Fox Mulder. Congratulations on the resurgence of your show, and thank you so much for becoming a Patreon supporter. I really appreciate that. Dakota Barber writes, canceled MoviePass and signed up for Cinemia. Can't wait to get the card for Cinemia. How long did it take for your card to arrive? Have a great day. I think my Cinemia card arrived in like 8 or 9 days. Now I talked to a buddy of mine who said he got his in like 3 days. So I don't know how he got his so fast, but yeah, mine wasn't an unreasonable amount of time. It wasn't like the 6 weeks I had to wait for my MoviePass card to show up. But yeah, I got about in 7 or 8 or 9 days. I think you're going to enjoy using it. Again, hey, remember, I use both. But I slightly prefer Cinemia just because for my movie-going habits, I really like being able to go to an AMC Prime theater, which you can't do with MoviePass. I like being able to buy my tickets in advance, which you can't do with MoviePass. And I like being able to buy my tickets online, which you can't do with MoviePass. Those are the advantages for me. For some of you, the advantages of MoviePass might work better for you. So it really all depends on what your personal preferences are and what your viewing habits are. Let's see here. Curtis Lopez writes, was at the gym, and Fox News, or should I say Faux News, was on, and they were outraged on how the Oscars were too political, even though most of it was spreading awareness for diversity and equality. Yeah, no. Anybody who says that I honestly feel, have the Oscars been too political in the past? Yeah, you can't argue against that. Sure they have. This year, there were two quick political jokes. One about, we don't make movies like Call Me By Your Name, which is a gay theme. We don't make movies like Call Me By Your Name to make money. We make them to annoy Mike Pence. That was one joke. And then there was a call out that Lupita Nyong'o and Camille Nanjiani made about the Dreamer Project. Those were the two things. Everything else was about fairness, equality, and opportunity. And I contend those are left and right issues. Those are not political issues. Those are human issues. That's basic decency issues. And neither the left or the right has a claim on basic decency. And I believe, as a Canadian living in America, that most Americans, left or right, believe in the basic tenets of equality, fairness, and opportunity. They may have different ideas about how those should be expressed and all that kind of stuff. Fair enough, yes, but these are not political issues. I would suggest to you this. Anybody who tries to say that's a political thing being pushed, they're probably the ones with the political agenda. Anybody who tries to say a woman standing up and saying, hey, women should be treated equally, anybody who says that's a political thing, then they're probably the ones with the political agenda. I believe the most Americans in this country believe in the basic tenets of fairness, opportunity, and equality. Maybe expressed differently, but I believe most Americans do. And so I do not consider those to be political issues. So no, I don't believe the Oscars were very political this year at all, to be honest with you. Two quick jokes, but that was about it from my point of view. Let's see. Curtis Lopez writes, these idiots on Fox keep saying actors should stick to acting, even though a lot of them are tax-paying voting. Says, yeah, I've always rejected the notion that an actor who is a citizen of this country and lives here should just stick to act. Do you say to a plumber, if a plumber starts to give their opinion about, what's going on in their city, do you say to a plumber, you shut up, you just plumb? What is the verb of plumbing? Is it plumb? I don't know. You shut up. You just plumb. Do you say to a guy who works at 7-Eleven, who maybe is concerned about something that's going on in his neighborhood? Do you say, you don't talk about that. You just stick to talking about selling scratcher tickets. That's all you get to talk about because you work at 7-Eleven. Is that all they're allowed to talk about? I mean, I know on my social media, my own personal social media pages, I'll talk about things that I think are important in the world. And eventually I get these brain dead idiots who come on, John, just stick to movies. It's like, really? Should I come to your place and tell you to just stick to flipping burgers? Do you not have a right? And these people who are citizens and they get given a platform and they choose to use their platform to express something. And anybody who says otherwise is being a hypocrite. Because anybody who says otherwise, they should never be allowed to talk or comment about things that they think are important in the world because it's not what their job is. And that's hypocritical. So I'm all for it. And whether you're saying things that I agree with or whether you're saying things I disagree with, you are allowed, if you live in this world, to express your thoughts about things going on in the world. I want you to be able to do that. Whether I agree with what you're saying or disagree with what you're saying, I want you to be able to say it. And that's an important thing. That's a cornerstone foundational thing about the type of society we live in. All right. Two more quick questions, and then I'm going to call it a day. This one comes from Mary, who says, Gunn said a few times that the Guardians are not going to Earth. I know he has said that before about specific movies. I don't know, and you might be right. I'm just saying I don't know. I don't know that he's ever said ever. Like, the Guardians are never going to Earth, ever. I don't know that he's ever said that. And the final question I'll take here today, and by the way, guys, if you have sent in Super Chat questions that I don't have time to get around to, don't worry about it. Your Super Chat questions will be the first ones I answer on this afternoon's open mic show. So don't worry about it. Your questions will get answered. Just join us this afternoon for the open mic show. And the last one today, called Rex Cousin says, is DC breaking up the big secret news? No. I mean, first of all, like I said in the video earlier in the show, I really can't see anybody breaking up the DCEU. That property is because everybody's trying to get cinematic universes together. Everybody knows that the DCU intact and together is far more valuable of a property than an individual Flash right, or an individual Cyborg right, or an individual Batman right. Together, they are far more valuable. And that's why I don't think Time Warner is going to break them up. And if Time Warner does sell Warner Brothers to another company, I don't think that company would want to break them up either. It just doesn't make financial sense. So I can't see that ever happening. I mean, anything can happen. We've seen stranger things happen. I just don't see that actually being a real viability of something that could. All right, guys, that will do it for me for today's installment of The John Campea Show. Thank you so much for joining me. Listen, don't forget, guys, if you enjoy watching my program, do me a favor, head on over to www.patreon.com/John Campea. Check out what it means to be a Patreon supporter for somebody, how being a Patreon supporter keeps these shows on the air, and what benefits there are to being a Patreon supporter as well. Also, don't forget, guys, you can follow me on social media. Follow me on Twitter, simply @JohnCampea. And, of course, I'll be back again later this afternoon at 3 p.m. Pacific Standard Time for our open mic show. I know we took a few minutes to take live questions now, but open mic is just all open live questions. Come back and join us then. All right, guys, that'll do it for me. Thanks a lot for joining me. My name's John Campea, and until my next video, bye-bye.